Session 3, bringing your intended audience and client into focus. So as coaches, we go through many phases. Here are 3 of them that we go through as business owners. One is as a student. We're going backwards here. And when we're a student, we're often focused on learning and becoming a coach. We're concerned with the change in our identity. Like, now we're becoming a coach. Can it really happen? We experience imposter syndrome. We dream about an experience. We dream about a coaching practice and our life as a coach. We experience our first coaching sessions. Your first paid session can feel like a long way off. And the emotions we often have are enthusiasm, anxiety, worry, whole mix, right? You guys can relate to this. And this is for students of this is for students of coaching, but also it's fairly universal if you're a student to become in a new career. Then the next phase I want to talk about is beginner. So you're getting your first sessions, practice or paid. You're learning coaching strategies. So you're starting to know what to do when you sit down with a client. You start to learn how to form strategies or lead your client, and you start to focus on what you want to give. And this is natural that we want to think about, oh, this is exciting. I got into this so I can help people. So we think about that a lot. Often we're trying to organize and synthesize everything we know and have to offer and try to figure out, okay, so what is like the master formula for everything that I do? We think synthetically. We seek an identity and a direction. And often we're confused about what do we do? Like, how do I turn everything I am and everything I've learned and everything I want to do into a message of some sort, right? And that's all good. It's all natural. This is an important phase. You have to think about the people who get into a business and they never think about what they want to give their customers. They usually run into problems, right? And then the third phase I want to talk about is professional. And so this is one that your perspective has switched from what I have to offer to what my client needs to hear, see, feel, and know, right? In order to get services from me. Often when you're a professional, experience is giving you more experience and maturity about the focus of your practice. You start to learn about the people who you coach. You start to have more experience about different kinds of clients. You may have developed a message that's right for your personality. So you figured out, this is my pacing, this is my style, this is my presentation style, this is what I like to do, this is what I hate to do. These are my values, these are my strengths. This is what I thought that this would work in coaching, but I hated it. I won't do that. But this I love to do, right? So you're easing into the kind of the resonance between your personality, your strengths, your skills, your individuality, and the clients that you like to help and the strategies you like to offer. Also, as a professional, you develop stable and consistent marketing systems for attracting and enrolling clients, right? So it's not this overwhelming mountain that you have to climb. It's not that you spend all your time trying to figure out how to do it and spend in courses and trying to go, connect the dots. You will actually have systems that you just maintain. And so I want to talk about the switch from beginner to professional. And this perspective change is what we're working on in this phase of this program, is from what I want to offer to what does my customer need to see, think, hear, and feel. And it's what it is a change in perspective. Okay. We are changing from, and the metaphor I've been using recently is like, we're inside our coaching practice, looking out our window, and we have all the stuff, or shop front, right? We're a store owner, and we have our shop front, and inside our shop, we have all the things we have to sell, and we're so excited. I have EFT, I have trauma modalities, I have strategic intervention, I have activation method, I have group coaching, I have all these things that I can do, maybe something from my previous expertise. All these things I want to offer and sell or offer and benefit people. But then we switch the perspective from being inside to what the client feels when they're walking outside on the street and they see a storefront across the street and they think, oh, I get it. I see the words. I want to go there, right? What do they need to see to come in? Does that make sense? I don't know if that's a useful analogy. But I think thinking that we're in here comfortable knowing all the things that we have, all our inventory, all our strategies, all the stuff, but then that perspective isn't going to get them inside the door. What gets them inside the door is they see a facade, they see a window, they see a label, right? And that label, there's no rules about what that label has to be or who the customer has to be. There's no hard and fast rules in business like this, but it has to, but it is what we need to think about now, and that's what we're calling marketing. And so when you have a working offer, and what that means is that you have a coaching practice, an offer, you have content, you have the message is all set up, and it performs at a certain level, meaning that you have now developed a perspective so that you know what kind of your customers go, what stages they go through as they find out about you as they go. And when you have a working offer, then you can get more attention and it's used more effectively. Okay. This is a little review here, but I hope it's okay that we just do a little kind of boot up of what we've been talking about. We're following the arrow model, which is appropriate for coaches. Attention. How do you get seen? Engagement. How do you get someone to read or engage with your message in some way? So that, and what that means, engagement means is they're relating to it. Is what it really means. Engagement means, oh, this is for me. Oh, I should read this. Oh, I should watch this. And then the real sign of engagement is when they let you know that they were there, where they want to, right? So someone has visited your website and they don't just vanish. They actually put in an email or they fill something out. Rapport is who you speak to. So the next phase is as coaches, we want to get in communication with our future clients as soon as possible, because that is when when our coaching powers really get used well. So when we have a clarity session, when we have a conversation, then because we're good at reading people, understanding them, we have a lot of abilities that many people who are sales and marketing don't really have, right? So we want to get them a rapport, and then we want to be able to give them our offer, a coaching offer, and that is best delivered in the form of rapport, in the form of a clarity session, right? So right now, if you're at student mode, and you can be in, when I talk about those three, I'm talking, you may be at different, you may identify with different parts of that, but as a coach, you already know how to read and resonate with the clients who are in front of you. So when someone is sitting with you and you're talking to them, you know how to adjust and adapt and figure out where they're at, what they're telling you, what's important to you. You start to know, anticipating their needs. And now we're going to resonate. What we're learning to do is to resonate with our intended client, meaning way before we actually meet them, we need to be able to resonate with them, understand them, anticipate what their experiences and what their needs are, okay? And so then we also talked about last time about the matching game. So this is the little, children's game where you find, oh, penguin, okay, that's a match, we got a match. Well, that's what's happening. That's how coaches get their clients. One way or another, someone matches a client to you. So it may be that the client matches themselves to you. It may be that someone refers you and sees a client and they match. They say, oh, this person would be a good client for you, or you'd be a good coach for this person. Or the internet does it, right? One of the platforms. Here's some examples of what happens when you don't have a good match to your client's needs. So when you're matching, when matchability or the definition of your coaching practice is not fully matured yet, when you telling someone about what you do as a coach and you get tongue-tied and flustered and confused because it's so complicated, and you start describing things and the person's eyes glaze over and you get confused about how to explain the value of what you do, right? And this might be behind many of you, but it's a phase that many of us go through. We're like, oh man, I had to describe what coaching is, and I felt like I was painting myself into a corner, right? Another sign that the matching has not been optimized yet is that people hear about what you do and they don't instantly say, oh, cool, I know someone who needs that. Because that's an easy match. And there are some people who aren't matchmakers, but many people who are matchmakers, and when they hear about a service that's being offered, they're thinking about, who do I know I could refer that to? If you struggle with your language on your website bio and landing pages, you haven't gone through the creative process of getting very clear about who you're matching to. When you don't know what to offer as content, so you offer an assortment, sometimes it doesn't make sense, right? So we see, oh, people are asking open-ended questions on social media, so I'm going to ask one, but it doesn't really relate to your offer or to the intended client that you have. And when people see that what you're doing, but it doesn't register as important as valuable, right? So the value of what you're doing has not been demonstrated or defined clearly for people, so that they're like, oh, I get it. I see how it makes sense that people invest large amounts of money with you. And when I say large amounts of money, $2,500, it's a lot of money, right? So we're going to solve this. If you don't have it, if you don't feel like you have it, here's what happens when the clients are easy to match. Clients see your message and they match themselves to you. So they see your message somewhere and they say, oh, whoa, that's me. I was just dealing with that. I was just thinking that. That is made for me. That speaks to me, right? They're matching themselves. And that's the most powerful thing, is that nothing happens in marketing without the client matching themselves to a message, okay? Referral partners in your communities, they recommend your coaching practice to people whose needs match your services. So this is not just about online. In any kind of networking referral basis, people need to have a very solid idea about who you help and why. When we're matched, when we cooperate with organizations and venues where our intended clients visit and work, business owners with customers who would benefit from your services like to promote, recommend, and host your services. And online platforms match your services, topics, and your messages with people whose behavior shows interest in those topics, right? And so what that means is that we are working efficiently within this worldwide system of matching. And matching includes referrals, includes every kind of situation that basically has to happen, right? Okay. We also talked about your specialty. And I like the definition of a specialty as a storefront. And the reason for that is that people often think that a specialty has to be a one-on-one correlation between themselves and the client, between themselves and their biography. But there is actually, as long as you get someone inside your store, and some of the things that are in your store relate to what's inside, what's on the name of your store, then people will find all kinds of things. Okay, so once you're in a rapport, you can start to pair someone individually with the best services for them. So if you may have a coach, and this is kind of where the world is unfair. Many of us have multiple modalities and multiple skills. After all, we've been around on this planet for a certain amount of years, and we know a lot. So the problem is that someone who's looking for services, they usually want a match for what they are. So like I could be the best business consultant and the best massage therapist in the world. There's no reason why I shouldn't be both of those. But if someone comes in, if it doesn't make sense to them as a pairing of what they're looking, they're thinking that person doesn't sound like they're committed to what I'm looking for. Okay. So what we need is a distinct message. And what that means is know your audience. And that's kind of an unavoidable thing. They don't necessarily have to be separated by gender, age, location, etc. I know a lot of us have been taught advice, and let me know if this resonates with you or if you've heard this. The idea of niching and sub-niching comes from an earlier time in the internet's history. So about 5-10 years ago, when Google was king of the internet and everything was found through a Google search, there was a concept called the long tail. And the long tail is like a graph. So if you look at like how many people are searching for something, and then you have a long tail of things that are more obscure and fewer people looking for it. And the idea was You can have a more obscure niche along the long tail, and you can create a business there. Don't compete with a big thing. So for instance, if you're a relationship coach, don't try to show up on the first page of Google for relationship coach, because you can't compete. There's going to be too much competition there. So they should sub niche and say relationship coach for Canadian Americans who speak French and have been divorced once, right? So that's an example of sub niching. So that is not, you don't have to do that anymore. You don't have to sub niche down. It's from an older time when everything was Google based. Right now, the internet is based on behavioral algorithms, meaning that it's not about showing up on a search in Google. It's about Facebook or some platform saying, oh, this is a person who's looking for help with divorce. This is a person who's looking for help with their teenage child. Okay. And so you're looking for the people who feel like your message and services match what they're looking for. And when we find your core positioning as a coach, your message will feel distinct to them. So here's something that I actually used to see this in the stores in the 80s, yellow, generic. So sometimes what we don't want to, if you look at stuff like this, this is generic packaging. So I want to just go a little side excursion on generic packaging. There's nothing wrong with the ingredients in these yellow packages. They're probably as good as anything, but people have an aversion to them in a capitalist society, because in capitalism, if something needs to have more of a brand or more distinct or have to have a little bit more of a story about them, right? Sometimes even people laugh about it. So I want to talk about just the general, take a minute here to talk about kind of market positioning and messaging. So generic things, they're not matched to any user, right? So you just buy it and you use it. They're often used for multiple uses. They're used in large quantities. So they're commodities. Like I want to buy 20 pounds of oatmeal. Low price per unit, mass produced, typical low cost ingredients. So if you buy something that's generic or that's not distinct, like if you go to your cheapest store and you buy a frozen dinner, then those ingredients will be, and there will be some ingredients that you want to avoid potentially. Like I don't know I go to a grocery store and I see frozen dinners and I'm like, oh, this is full of stuff I don't want to eat, right? There's no exclusion, there's no prestige, and there's mass efficiency. So that's generic positioning, and we're talking about food right now. But distinct is when you're matched to specific users. Some users are not invited to purchase specific use based on specific instructions, things that are in small batches and packages, things that are you pay more per unit. Unique, rare ingredients are often involved. They will exclude things that you don't want. There's often an origin story or values about it. Okay. So here's something that I just Magali this last weekend. We were in a little boutique, and here they were selling chamomile tea. Okay. And I picked this up and I read it and I just thought, wow, they've got some good examples of things that make it more distinct. Right. So it has this cool font. It has the location, Charleston, which is like a romantic city in the US. American history, although he's holding the Magna Carta, I don't understand why that's not American history. A leaf from America's tea heritage. Chamomile in this cool fonts, caffeine-free herbal tea. And then a story, chamomile is a caffeine-free herb with daisy-like flowers. It has blossoms with an aroma of sweet apples. Chamomile is steeped in the evenings as a relaxing herb and is often hailed as an aid for paying for insomnia or stress. It was consumed during the American Revolution as a patriotic alternative to paying a tea tax to the British and was nicknamed Whig plant. Patriots, because the more you steep on it, the more it will grow. I didn't actually read that the first time through. So I put a check mark here because the location where I found it was a kind of elite. It was a boutique, so it was a place where people are not looking for what they need. It wasn't a supermarket. It was a place where people looking for things that might appeal to them. And 6 tea bags. So this package of tea costs you $7. And then if you compare it to so that's like an example of they go all out to make it seem distinct. You guys see this? Does it make sense? You can nod if you, okay. So we've all seen this, right? So they've gone to the effort of taking this ingredient and making it as distinct as possible. Now, if I went to Walmart and I saw how much it costs. And so I couldn't find like generic, to make the point, I would look for like generic chamomile tea, but that's actually that's not even available anymore. You have celestial seasonings, and it's 15 cents per tea bag for celestial seasonings, $1.17 for tea bag for the fancy stuff. Okay. And so it's 10 times the price. So I know this stuff seems kind of silly. Oh man, this, all this stuff, but it actually creates, and I just want to bring up what they're talking about is this. Chamomile is a road weed. Okay. It grows in roads. Anyway, so it's not, you make it as exotic as you want, but the reason it was drunk during the American Revolution is because it was everywhere. So one thing that I want to bring up, that's a source of resistance that coaches have to getting more distinct and more specialized in their, and what I'm doing this week is I'm trying to locate any point that might be a catching point for you in creating a more distinct or more specialized identity for your coaching practice. So I'm trying to anticipate. I think this group actually has made really good progress over the last two sessions, but there might be people who have not. So I just want to make sure that everyone has gotten a chance to process this. So here's the one thing that I thought about, that when coaches think about becoming more specialized or more distinct or more high end in their coaching, they have a intuitive resistance to it. And I think because there's a little bit of a paradox, because we often mistake the virtues of being we're often very flexible, adaptable people and agreeable, and we like people who focus on the positive and are flexible and adaptable and inclusive, and they are willing to overlook details and defects, right? That's like a nice person. Like if I'm working with someone and I don't want them to be a fussy person, I want them to be like, let's look at the big picture, we can work together, we can figure it out, I can adapt. That's a nice person, right? And we people often reputationally like people less who are fussy, who are detail oriented, who are focused on what is not wanted, who want to exclude certain people from what they offer. And we'll call that a particular person. Okay, so these are character traits. Do you guys follow this? You have people who are open-ended, flexible, inclusive, and then people who are like kind of fussy, detail oriented. Now, an agreeable person will help anyone. They're not picky. They'll adapt to you. They'll overlook defects. They're always available. They're humble. They're not prideful. They make things inexpensive. They focus on convenience. We'll figure it out. Let me be available to you. Someone who's particular might discriminate and disqualify. They might be detail oriented. They might not be compatible. They know everything that's wrong. They're sometimes unavailable. They pride themselves on their virtues. And so I found this weird resonance between, so we want to be agreeable as people, but in the world of products, we reward things that are particular, right? So what's Vaseline other than like multi-purpose, cheap, always there for you? You can use it for many different things. It doesn't care who you are, right? It's a really great thing. Estee Lauder, which is I'm sure there's a lot more expensive creams than this. But it's for a certain face, a certain result, a certain customer, certain skin type, certain ingredients, very particular, right? So Vaseline is, hey man, Vaseline is at my disposal, right? Estee Lauder is detail oriented. It might not be compatible. It really thinks about ingredients that you don't want. Okay. So in the world, we want to choose to be agreeable, flexible, friendly, accessible. But in the world of products, you actually want to be more particular and specialized. Does that make sense? And so it's important to get you're not your service. You can have an agreeable, flexible, fun-loving, open-ended personality and a specialized high-value product or service that actually has high standards, excludes, is not always available, costs more. Does that make sense? Okay. So sometimes, I don't know if this is a point of resistance for some of you. I think it is a point of resistance for some people when they think, oh, I'm going to choose this kind of service that excludes certain people. Oh no, I'm putting on airs now. Now I'm being a jerk. Now I'm being like people that I don't like. No, that's what your product is doing. Your product needs to do that because we're in capitalism. You don't want to be a yellow labeled generic life coaching product. You don't want to be a yellow labeled, you don't want to be the Vaseline of the coaching world. Does that make sense? Okay. And by the way, well, since we're talking about this tip, I do like to repeat this, is that you can always tell, even if you're very specialized, even if you're expensive, even if you are for a certain type of company, you can always tell someone, I help my clients with a wide range of situations and I have specialty in this. So your specialty does not exclude people actually. And as a coach, you can always go for a high position in your market and then knock it down whenever you need to. Whenever you meet someone who you'd like to meet as a coach and you're willing to take a discount, or you can have sliding scale people, or you can have a certain percentage that is for free. And I think, Vaseline gets a bad rap. Vaseline's really useful. You go to the doctor and they're like, put some Vaseline on it. You're like, no, that's too cheap. I need something a little more high-end. But anyway, so we're not excluding anyone. We're being more specific about our intended clients. And that's what we're really talking about. I think what's ridiculed in our culture is that Vaseline is just too easy, too available, too cheap. And some people feel like it's below them. Okay. So I don't know. Let me know if that was helpful as an analogy. I think it's important to separate, to feel that separation between who I am as a person and that my product is not a reflection of my individual personality. We have to find a position in the market that's separate. And what's the best thing is when you get a high-end, high-value product, very tight fit, good income, and the client says, and that coach was so nice, and they bent over backwards for me, and they were so helpful. That's great. You have a contrast between a fussy product and a very flexible coach. I didn't mean fussy, I mean particular, but I think you get it. Okay. So now we're going to review different routes for arriving at a specialty, because I know it is a personal decision and it needs to come from here. And so different people have different modalities that they respond to. So if you have already chosen one, then use this, go through this and just think, oh, how can I add some nuances to my understanding of my positioning? Okay. So we talked about core positioning, goal for identity, goal being the universal thing that most people want in some way, and the identity, which makes it more specific. And then with goal identity together, it creates a more customized service. At least that's how the customer feels. Okay. And some of you have gone more for the identity. You've thought about people that you want to help, a group of people, their identities or their demographics. And some of you have thought more about the goals, the benefits that you want to focus on, the services that you want to offer. Okay. Now, here are some of the assumptions that people make that make it more difficult to choose a specialization. We think, oh, my specialty has to match my biography. Like, okay, I'm these things. I was a teacher. I'm a writer, and I'm a parent. So I'm going to help teacher writers who are parents, right? We can do that, and that's okay. But sometimes the assumptions can get us a little tangled up. Sometimes we think that our specialty has to include all of my skills and education that I have. So they think, well, how am I going to fit it all into my specialty? You don't have to fit it all into your specialty. Okay. It's more like you can fit into your shop, not your shop front. It has to match all the people I can help. Right. So then we think, oh, if I'm not including everybody I might help, then I'm screwed up. So I want to help people who are stuck in their relationship and their business and with their kids. You're trying to match everyone, but when someone sees all those three things, they don't want to be matched to a coach who does all three of those things. They want to be matched to someone who's the closest, most relevant to them. People get worried that they're excluding people. Coaches get worried that they can't criticize and they can't differentiate themselves from anything. They can't say, I bet you've seen this approach and I'm not a fan of it, or here's my critiques of this way, right? They're afraid of doing that, differentiating. I'm not saying you have to, but sometimes you're afraid of that. You think that you have to be a topic expert or solution provider, meaning you have to have encyclopedic knowledge of that specialty. You do not. As a coach, you do not. What you have strong knowledge of is your coaching strategies and your familiarity with those types of problems and those types of clients. So in other words, you're not there as a big Google search for that specific thing, right? We're not in the information business. We're in the business of working with clients and helping them to be activated and to empowered in steps that they need to take. We often think that if the client isn't there, I can't write or think about them. That's what we're trying to overcome. I know you can all, when you're talking to someone in person, you can relate to them and figure them out. And now we need to be able to figure out people who aren't here talking to us. Okay. Sometimes people think my stuff is too weird to write about or specialize in. So you might be in a fringe topic. There's many kind of fringe topics. There are fringe topics on the right, like survival. There's fringe topics on the left, like identity politics. You have fringe topics that are in the personal care or in spirituality. Those are all fine. Any of those, there's no norm that you have to hit. It just has to be a good fit for those customers. And all these areas have customers and clients. You may think that there's an area of life that you can't have a specialization for some reason. You have an area in your life and you feel discounted, like, well, I've had too many defeats in that area. Okay. So, and I'm not saying yes or no, but these are assumptions that people often make. And also sometimes we have a source of clients that is easily around us. And we are assuming that we can't help them. We were just talking to a client who wants to help CEOs with ADHD. And she lives and kids go to school in one of the most expensive, prestigious schools in the whole country. And like people coming in and internationally. And it's just like, you have access to this incredible, you're part of this community, and then you want to go completely else and just ignore the fact that you have access to this community. That's why I do ask about access. So are there any assumptions that you're making that you feel like might have been a snagging point for you? And I'll just take a second for you to kind of percolate on that, because what we're trying to do is find them. Any assumptions that you feel like, oh, I started moving this direction, I feel like this has to be like this, and then it becomes a problem. By the way, Brisa, thank you I still feel like I have to offer solutions, solve problems. So yes, we'll talk about it more later. I don't want to distract people from any assumptions that you're making. Okay, feel free to type them in or write them down. So let's go through some different approaches towards creating your positioning for your practice. So last time we went through a biographical inventory, right? We went through everything that you've learned, experience, history, awarenesses, people, customers, right? Did anything come up for you that popped out for you? I think that people seemed quite ready to choose and I imagine someone that they wanted to help. So now that's one strategy. Now we're going to do another strategy that we talked about a little bit during the implementation groups, which is how to build a fence around your audience. That sense, it's friendlier than it sounds. It's like a garden. So if you figured out these kinds of people I want to help parents in this situation, or women in this situation, or people of a certain age in this type of situation. So at this point, if it's coming slowly into focus, or these executives or people in this industry. So one way to narrow it down and take your time and not force yourself is to build a kind of a fence or around this group of people and think about, what are they going through? Like, say it could be a cultural group. So you don't have to create a precise formula for your client avatar. You could start by building a fence around a population of clients and then types of situations that they often encounter. So here's some examples from this week where students made progress. I heard one, women who immigrated to the US with their husbands to find the American dream, found it, succeeded, and then had some challenges, right? So that's an example of a theme in a group of clients. And it doesn't really, we haven't gone into the full focus where now we know exactly what they want. We don't have to do that at this point, right? When we're building a garden, meaning that we're creating a bear, kind of devoting ourselves to a group of people. Another one, women in cross-cultural marriages who husbands, families, etc. Right? And then we start to understand all the different predicaments, all the types of situations that can arrive. Women who raise their families and then wanted to create a meaningful career and chapter of life for themselves. Right? So you guys get it? This strategy, you're coming up with a rough, open, kind of organic way of, it's a cluster of different experiences that people have. You can have people who went into their family business only to find that their parents won't let go of power. You see, you start to imagine, oh, I see. So the way that you do with this garden is to create a population and or a theme, create a fence around it, and start harvesting stories. Oh, all right. So you want it to be a fertile, fruitful garden. So if you don't like to say goal for identity, and that's too formulaic and too much like algebra or something like that, then just think of it as a garden that you're creating. And it's okay for it to have fruits, vegetables, weeds, wild animals, whatever you want. Okay, what you want is you want it to be an area where your imagination and your research can flourish. Right. So when you need content, you can visit your garden and pick at some fruits and veggies and create some delectable, relatable content for your audience. So if you know, oh, I know women who are in this situation and I collect their stories, then down the line, that is what you want. That's part of knowing your audience. Okay, another strategy. Now, some of these might resonate, that might not. I'm actually, because we have a smallish group and because I'm really dedicated to everyone figuring out, finding the tool, the key that unlocks the lock for them, I'm going through a variety of these. And if you already have one, you can think, okay, so how would I create a garden around my group? I already have my benefit theme or my core positioning, but now I want to think about, I want to create a garden and think of 10 relatable experiences that people have, right? My people do. So here's another one, reverse engineering from the solution. So there's a lot of coaches who have thought a lot about what benefits they want to offer and what they want to focus on, what they want to give, right? So one way you can do that is you go from solution to symptom, meaning you start with the service or the solution that you offer. And when I say solution, I don't mean in the sense of, I guess I just want to put a bracket around that. As coaches, we support our clients in creating solutions. We offer them help and support and coaching for their solutions. We don't solve problems for people. Okay, that's just important. Anyone who works with clients doesn't actually solve problems for them. Any of us, no accountant can solve problems for their clients. Clients need to do the work. The clients need to make the decisions. The practitioner is there to create the optimum environment for the client to do that, okay? I know, because it's a hang up. We think, oh man, I'm going to be on the hook to solve this. So you start with the service you want to offer, and then you think reverse engineer to the symptoms that the clients would use. So if you are helping people to be at home with themselves and calm and resting in their spirit, right? If that's the solution that you want to offer in your coaching, that's a benefit. That's the way how you relate to your coaching practice. Then you have to think, what is someone going through who does not have any of those benefits right now? That might be someone who feels jumpy, self-critical, all over the place, living a life that's not authentic to them. Those are some examples, right? And those are called symptoms, right? And like, you know, in regular practice, how do you know you need an Advil, right? Just because we like the label or we like the flavor, which all of us love the flavor of Advil? No, it's because you have a symptom, right? How do you know that you need a dentist? Something is telling you